Hey y'all, I'm Jennifer with Spark Flash Fiction, and we are here tonight with Wendy Klopfenstein. And I had to ask her about that. Klopfenstein, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. Alrighty. To talk about her story, but first let me introduce this veteran of Spark who has written for us a few times. So Wendy enjoys sunshine, sweet tea, and a good book, preferably all at the same time. Having always loved creating stories as much as reading them, she now puts the ones wandering around in her head on paper for others to enjoy. When she's not sitting on the porch reading or helping clients in the family business, you can find her working on her next novel. So let's start out, Wendy, since this is the fairy tale issue. Let me start out by asking you, what did you base your story off of, and why did you choose that fairy tale?
I based it off of Beauty and the Beast. And I think what happened was I was just kind of letting my mind think, like got the theme, fairy tales, and just letting my mind go, okay, what would work? What would work? And then I just seen this burly sheriff, and I went, okay, it's going to be Beauty and the Beast.
I love that. Now, what is your favorite fairy tale, and has it changed since you were a child?
I think originally I loved the Little Mermaid, the very original one, that doesn't necessarily have what people would consider the happy ending where she makes the sacrifice and becomes the sea foam. And then once I saw Disney's animated Beauty and the Beast, I think every book lover can relate. When she is in that library, that just seals it. It's Beauty and the Beast after that.
Yes, that's what I said. That's my favorite. And it literally really had nothing to do with the Beast. It was the library.
I think that's what everybody says. It's kind of like Lizzie in Pride and Prejudice when she saw Pemberley,
Exactly. That was the changing point. We all know it. So, obviously, this story is historical romance, but is historical romance your favorite subgenre to write, or do you actually prefer another subgenre?
I love writing the historical romance. There's just something about it, and I love it.
Me too. I am a historical romance nerd. But now that you've told us that, you have a book coming out next year that is also a historical romance, correct?
Yes.
This was Sunrise Publishing, which is, if y'all don't know, that's run by Susan May Warren, who's one of the big names in the Christian fiction industry. And Wendy gets to work with Lacey Williams on this book. So tell us a little bit about what this book is going to be about.
It is a historical Western, and it's a mail order bride story. So if you took You've Got Mail with a little bit of While You Were Sleeping and set it in the Old West, Wyoming, that's what you would get.
Okay, that is the elevator pitch that I've been trying to get for years. You did it so well, and I just threw it at you, and I'm kind of jealous. But that sounds amazing. So now I'm going to put you on the spot because we were both talking about Lacey Williams before we went live. Tell me one of your favorite books by her. She has a million, I feel like.
Oh, that's really hard. And because I've read almost every one of the historicals, I want to say her wagon trains that she has right now, those are really, really good. And I love those. But she wrote one of the final ones on the White family. And I can't remember, the name is escaping me right now. But the hero has he was a bad boy that is reformed, he's and that one's probably one of my favorites.
No, I haven't read those yet, and now you're making me want to go read them. I'm behind because, like I said, she's so prolific. She's got all these books out, and I've gotten so behind, and I need to go catch up. One of her favorites, I can't even remember the name of it, but it was in the series with the Pony Express station, and the guy had a pen pal, and it was a woman, but he didn't know it yet, and she came to the station because her and I think it was either her sister or her cousin or her friend were trying to escape someone dangerous, and so she just kind of like shows up as like, I'm your pen pal, and he's like, what? And then there's a little bit of forced proximity because she has to stay at this way station with him. I wish I could remember the name of it. It was really good. I should have looked it up before we went live. But anyways, all right. Now, so you've written a mail order bride one, and
Yes.
like that was a very famous trope. But what is your favorite trope to write?
I love the enemies to lovers.
Mm.
And there's a little bit of that in there too, because I love that. I really love enemies to lovers and friends to lovers, maybe frenemies to lovers. But those are fun. It's just when you have the sparks going on, I think with the enemy to lover trope, I love that.
You know, and I should have known that because Beauty and the Beast is a little bit of like, you start out as enemies, and then you have the very well in your story, Belle and Sheriff Beastly. I mean, just the fact that she nicknames him Beastly, I think tells you everything that you need to know.
She's not a fan at the beginning, though.
You know, I have to say, I'm a sucker for those too. Although to me, I'm like the biggest sucker for the friends to lovers trope. I love those. Although Marriage of Convenience will always be my favorite to read. So do you have one? Because like some people, they love to write a certain trope, but then they really like reading another one better. So do you also like reading all those, or is there like another trope that really stands out to you when you're picking up a book?
I think it would be about the same because I do love the enemies to lovers one. It's just so fun. Like I said, I love the sparks on the page, and yeah, it's fun.
To me, the banter is the best part.
Yeah.
Especially when, like, you know how you get in an argument with someone and then you walk away and you think of all like these really witty things that you should have said back. And so, like, I feel like I'm living out my dream and like these arguments.
I know.
Yeah, you
Perfect lines.
All right, so we've been talking about fairy tales. So is there a fairy tale retelling that you've read lately and you just like really enjoyed it?
I have the fairy tale retellings by Karen Whittemire on my TBR pile, but I haven't got to those yet, but they sound really good. And I did recently read this, I think it was the first one actually in Lacey's Cowboy Fairy Tales, which are contemporary. And so I started into the first one of that, but I haven't got through all of them yet. So they're in my TBR too.
You know, I forgot that she wrote some contemporary, and now I definitely have to go check her out again. So besides obviously Lacey Williams, I think we've already discussed she's a top contender. But what are some other of your favorite sweet romance authors?
I love Julie Klassen, and she's Regency, which is, you know, totally swinging in a whole different area there. But I love Julie Klassen. Misty Beller is very good. I really enjoy Rachel Hauck, picking up her books. And for rom-com, I really like Bethany Turner. So.
Oh my gosh, Wendy, I just had a moment. The book that I was talking about of Lacey's that I loved is actually Misty's. I just got them mixed up. Anyways, Misty's book is good. I will say I read one by Lacey's recently, and it was, I think it was Roping the Wrangler, and she's like a school teacher, and the guy's name was Oscar, I think.
Right. Yeah, he's one of the siblings from the White family. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, and I love that whole like family thing she had going on. Mm-hmm. I read a few of them, but I was like reading them out of order, and then I was like having to slap myself, and I'm like, Jennifer, you're just getting yourself confused about this whole like family, and you need to go back and read them in order. I'm not good at reading books in order, though. I tend to read them.
My son has a joke running that I have traditionally in the past bought him a book, and he'll be like, Mom, this is like number 2 or number 3. Where's the beginning? So we have like a little family joke that I tend to buy them out of order and then go, oh, didn't realize that. I have to go back and get the others. So that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I like ebooks. Because, you know, if you go and you get a physical book and then you bring it home,
Yeah.
and you're like, I got the wrong one. Like, you have to wait and go back. But with an ebook, I can just hurry and run to Amazon, and they deliver it to my Kindle, and I'm like, all right.
And they have them listed for you.
Yes, they
So
do. It's way easier. Like, I've been tempted actually to go to Lacey's website, print out all of her books, so that I can start checking them and be like, yes, I've read this one. I have not read this one, and I need to go get it. Especially since I started in her books very randomly by reading, I think it was like Charming the School Marm.
Yes, yeah.
Or something. Yes, that one. Very randomly. And I read it and I'm like, oh, this is really good. And of course, it was in like the middle of a series. And then I read another one. What was it? Mary and Miss Marshall. That was like way back at the beginning of Lacey's career. And I'm like, man, Jennifer, you need to like get it together. But anyways, so you mentioned Karen Whittemire is on your TBR. Yes. And I have to talk about her for a second because she's who I want to be when I grow up.
Oh.
So tell me some of your favorites of hers, because hers are like really good.
Oh no, my brain is just like not remembering, right?
Because I threw it at you, right?
I know. Sorry.
It's okay.
It's drawing a blank at this moment.
If it helps, I'll tell you a couple of mine, and maybe it'll help jog your memory.
Okay.
Because one of them, oh gosh, I'm blanking on the title now. I'll tell you what it's about. It's about a blacksmith with he has like a speech impediment. He has a lisp, and her name is Eden, and they're in the town of Spencer, and he can't say Spencer, and so he'll call her Eden, and it like gets on her nerves. And she's like, "My name is Miss Spencer," and he's like, "I know what your name is." Anyways, and they end up falling for each other, and I cannot believe I'm blanking on the name of this book because it was
okay. So was there a novella that introduced that series that was set at Christmas time? So I'm thinking her favorite was I just recently read like a Christmas novella that she did, and that was that the town with all the women in it.
No, but I know the town you're talking about.
Okay.
I know. Okay,
I'm sorry, I didn't even think about it to get like a title for that. So sometimes you read a lot of books and it's hard to remember all the different. It's like I can tell you the plot.
Yes, it's like I can tell you. I can even tell you what the book cover looks like.
Mm-hmm,
like
right.
I will describe it to you in detail. What the words on the book title are, but I don't know.
Exactly.
Well, let's move on since our minds are like completely and totally blanking. And we have probably confused everybody. So tell me another author that is on your TBR. Maybe you haven't read anything by them yet, but you've heard about them and you're like, I've got to read this person.
Oh, that's a hard one. I did recently get a book from Abby Downey, her new book, and that one is actually on my TBR for next, about the woman race car driver. It's historical, and so I'm really wanting to read that one because that has me all intrigued.
Oh, it's good. It's good. I'm not just saying that because Abby's on staff, but like it really is. It's good.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the next one on my my thing right now. So when I got it and I was reading all about the back cover copy, I was like, oh, this is such an interesting premise that you don't like. I don't think I've seen anything like it, and that was really intriguing me. So
and that's every author's dream. So I think you just made Abby's night. I say that. You know what I mean? Like everyone wants someone to look at their book and be like, wow, this looks really interesting. Let me put aside all of my chores and read this right now.
Go see it.
Yeah. It's like, who needs bedtime? But anyways, let's get back to writing because I could probably talk about reading all day long. So let's talk about writing a little bit. Wendy, the most important question we can ask you is, are you a plotter, a pantser, or are you in the middle?
Plotter.
Plotter, really?
Yeah, extensive plotting. And then I feel like it's a lot easier when I sit down to do it if it is plotted.
Yeah.
I'm working, of course, with Susie May Ward and everything. She has her SEQ and the Lindy, all this stuff that she has us do with planning and plotting, and it really does help. And it really, I feel like it helps you get a strong story when you're writing it. Less changes to go back and make later, hopefully.
Yeah, that makes complete total sense. I used to be a pantser. Like I would just sit down, I have no idea what I'm doing, and just write. And then of course I had like this huge like mess, and I try to fix it to turn it to basically Frankenstein's monster, right? Because you're like I like this scene and I like this scene, and then they don't really like mesh together. Yeah. So Hope Wellburn decided she was going to reform me because she's big. She's big on outlining, and she's like, I'm telling you, outlining makes everything easier. So now I'm in the middle. Like I will sit down. I like Susan May Warren's SEQ, like the story equation where you sit down and figure out the certain characters. And to me, like that is the biggest sell. I don't like the Lindy Hop. Probably because I'm too like ADHD to sit down
and get it all down.
Yeah. But I have to admit that sitting down and actually figuring out the characters before I put the characters on a page makes it 10 times easier. Definitely. All right. Next question. Do you write in the morning, during the day, or at night?
Probably the most more towards evening.
More towards evening.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. So with you being a mother, like how do you work writing in with everything else that you have going on in your life?
Well, at this point, my son is grown. He is married. So I don't have one at home. You still plan even with your adult children around things, but it's not quite as intensive as when you have, children at home that you're planning your scheduling around. I do work as well, so planning around that, but it's flexible, and so that's a huge blessing with that. It's just there is a point where you have to just make yourself go do it. You just have to slot the time and just make yourself go do it.
Yeah, that is really good advice. Slot the time and make yourself do it.
Yeah, whether you're like feeling like it at that moment or not, you just got to do it.
I have a hard time with that because sometimes I just don't feel like it, and I'm like, well, I'm obviously not in the groove. I'm not going to be able to do it. Yeah. But then I find it when I actually like put my rear end in a chair and I actually start writing, I'm like, oh, I actually got a lot more done than I thought that I would.
Yeah, sometimes once you start, then it hits you as you're going. Like there's been times it's kind of like people will talk about exercise. Well, you just go start it. You're like, well, I'll just do a few reps, but then you get into it and you're like, okay, I can do my whole routine or whatever. It's kind of the same thing. Like you're like not feeling like it, but you sit down and start doing it. Next thing you know, you're like, oh, I need to stop and go get some dinner. So it can hit you when you make yourself do it.
Yeah. Okay, I randomly remember the name of that book, and I'm putting it in the comments. It's To Win Her Heart by Karen Whittemire, and it's one of my favorites. Also, Every Word Unsaid was really good too. But anyways, that was like me being random. I really do think I have ADHD, y'all. Like I'm not just saying it to be funny. But all right. Do you have any writing tips for those who are just getting into writing and maybe they're kind of like overwhelmed by all of these things that they're hearing about, like the publishing deadlines and, submitting to these different magazines and building your platform and like all these other things? Like, what is some advice that you would give to a brand new writer?
I think one of the things for me is learning to you do the work and you turn it over to the Lord. I just as a Christian, you turn it over to the Lord and you don't sweat it. Like if you have the opportunity, take it. You don't know what'll happen. The worst thing that could happen, because sometimes it's really hard. You psych yourself up for it, but then when you get ready to hit that submit button, it's really hard because someone's going to read it. But if you don't try, it can't happen. If you do, the worst that can happen is a no, and rejections are hard. I've had my fair share of those as well, and that is a hard thing. But you can't, if you don't try, you won't get there. And so, keep going, keep learning, keep trying. Any feedback at all that you get on anything that you do, that's another reason to try for things, is even if you don't get it, you may get that feedback, which is invaluable and can then help you improve for the next time. It's such a learning curve on that. So take all of that in and just keep applying it and keep going.
That is fantastic advice. I love that. Oh, and I'm not the only person. See, you're so inspiring, Wendy. So inspiring. All right, now, last thing before we go. I'm very curious. I'm a curious person, and I know the answer for myself, but I want to know the answer for you. To you, what do you feel like is the main difference between when you sit down and write a flash fiction story versus when you sit down to write a novel?
I'm trying to think. Probably it's for me, the reward of it's the whole process, but faster. And so, because the other takes, it's a very long process from the time you start with an idea, you go through it and then edits, and then getting to the point of having it out there in the world. And flash fiction can be faster. And so it's all the pieces. It's just so much shorter that you get to move through them quicker. And I don't know if that makes sense, but to me, it's like I got through the whole thing, and get to share it faster.
Yes. I agree with you. That's why, like, when people are like, I don't have time for NaNoWriMo. And I'm like, that I understand. And I was like, here's what I suggest you do is do 30 days of flash fiction, because then you have like these 30 stories at the end of the month that you can go do something with. And sometimes it helps to get your routine down. Like you said, sit yourself down and actually write. And then you get to see all the nice little reward for your labor a lot faster than you do with a full-fledged novel.
And it can give my brain like a different direction to take a break from a bigger project, go do that. And it's almost like it can, while I'm thinking on that, it frees up something in the other space at the same time, which may sound kind of strange, but it does. Mm-hmm. So if I get stuck, going to write something of a smaller word count like that actually helps me unstick and move forward with my other project as well. So that's another reason I like to do it.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. There's something about, I think a lot of times when we get stuck is we get in this perfectionist mode. Mm-hmm. We're like, I'm never going to get this right. And then like when we see ourselves complete something that we are pleased with, and then we can go back and be like, I can do this. All right. So tell us, Wendy, where is the best place for readers to connect with you as we anxiously await this book for next year?
You can go to my website, wendyklopfenstein.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter. It's at the bottom of the front page on the website. And I am on Instagram and Facebook. Wendy Klopfenstein Author is the name on both of those. So any of those places is great. We do have a Sunrise Historical Readers Group that's on Facebook as well. And that way you get to connect with all of the Sunrise historical authors there. So.
Yay. Now, can I be nosy, Wendy? Because, Lacey's books tend to be connected, which is one of the reasons why I love her books. And I tell myself I need to go read them in order. Are you allowed to tell us how these books are going to be connected?
There is a connection to her Wind River series, and there are 4 of us writing. And so it is going to be 4 brothers that each have their own story. And they are all connected there.
Okay, that's another trope that I'm like a sucker for. Is that the series is around brothers, and I don't know why. But all right, that sounds great. I'm excited. Thank you, Wendy, so much for joining us.
I appreciate it.
And thank you, everyone, for watching, whether it's live or the replay. After we're done, I am going to comment with all of her links so that you can go and follow Wendy and you can keep up with all of the fun stuff that is happening. So, everyone, I hope you all have a great night. I hope you have a good book. And I hope to see you back here the next time we do an interview. All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.